Welcome to The Explainer. Have you ever actually stopped to wonder where the gold in your smartphone or your favorite piece of jewelry really comes from? Well, I am incredibly thrilled you're joining me today because we're digging into a truly fascinating and deeply complex socioeconomic crisis that's unfolding right now deep in the Amazon. It's a story where extreme global economics violently collide with literally one of the most fragile ecosystems on the planet. Today, we're unpacking Peru's deadly pursuit of fortune. Okay, let's dive right into this. It is a seriously jarring contrast. On one side, you have the expectation, right? The pristine, dense, green canopy of the Amazon, an absolute sanctuary. But then there's the grim reality. Muddy, smoke-filled rivers just choked by heavy dredging machinery and the constant metallic scraping of mining. This spot is the epicenter of a massive wave of illegal mining destruction. An area that is supposed to be completely, 100% protected, is instead being methodically torn apart. Section 1, a protected forest under siege. 1.3 million hectares. That's the sheer massive size of the Tambopata National Reserve, located down in southeastern Peru, right near the Bolivian border. This isn't just some small patch of woods. It's an immense, sprawling biome that plays an absolutely critical role in the health of our entire global climate. And this vast area is supposed to be a protected haven for some of the world's most incredible wildlife. We're talking about jaguars, giant otters, and literally thousands of distinct plant species. But the very ground these animals walk on holds a tragic curse. Beneath that soil lies gold. And the intense pursuit of that gold is actively destroying the habitat right above it. Section 2. The failure of past operations. And this brilliantly illustrates the frustrating cycle we're dealing with. Back in 2019, the government launched this massive military crackdown called Operation Mercury. They destroyed over 200 dredges, expelled thousands of miners, and essentially declared victory. But it was only temporary. The miners just waited it out, and now they've returned. Except this time, they're heavily organized into syndicates and bringing even better, more formidable equipment. An environmental scientist working right there on the ground sums it up perfectly. They said, "We saw a brief drop, but as soon as enforcement relaxed and gold prices climbed, the miners came back, this time with better equipment and more organization. It's just a relentless pendulum of enforcement and then immediate resurgence." And the sheer scale of that resurgence is staggering. Over 500 hectares of forest lost at breakneck speed in just the last year alone. To kind of put that into perspective, that's roughly 1,000 football fields of ancient, irreplaceable Amazonian forest just completely wiped off the map, as over 300 dredges operate inside the reserve right this second. But we really have to look past the statistics and see the profound human toll of this crisis. These miners use mercury to separate the gold from the river sediment, and that toxic mercury flows directly into the rivers and the local food chain. As one local indigenous leader desperately explained, "Our children are getting sick. The fish are dying. We used to drink this water. Now we have to buy bottled water, if we can afford it." It brings all that huge environmental data down to a pretty devastating human reality. Section 3. Inside the government crackdown. So the government isn't just sitting by. They've launched a new offensive, actually deploying Navy commandos in full tactical gear to raid these makeshift camps. One of their main tactics? Smashing the individual mining engines used on those dredges. And those engines are incredibly expensive, worth up to $45,000 each. By destroying them, the military is hoping to bankrupt the operations and physically disrupt the extraction process. Now, what's really interesting here is the self-awareness coming straight from the government itself. Listen to this quote from an official. "We are doing everything we can, but this is not just an environmental problem. It's an economic and social one. These miners are poor. They have no other options." It highlights that the root cause isn't necessarily just malice or greed, it's desperate systemic poverty. Because at the end of the day, smashing an engine doesn't fix the fact that the miner operating it still needs to feed their family. Section 4. Poverty and global gold demand. So why do they keep coming back? Well, between 2020 and 2026, global gold prices have absolutely skyrocketed on this sharp upward trend, trading near all-time highs. This huge financial incentive is exactly why the miners keep returning, despite the extreme risks of getting arrested or facing military raids. The economic draw is just way too massive to ignore. And down on the ground, that global price high translates to a very stark economic reality. For a rural Peruvian with no land and no job, extracting just a single gram of gold and selling it to an informal middleman can literally buy a week of food for their family. When sheer survival is on the line, military helicopters and environmental damage pretty much become secondary concerns. Let's see how this builds step by step and how this local hustle turns into a massive global network. The supply chain starts with a miner on the dredge. They sell to a local middleman. That buyer then moves it to a city refinery, where it's melted down, effectively erasing all its illicit origins. From there, it flows seamlessly right into international markets in the US and Europe. It's wild to think that it takes moving an estimated 20 tons of earth to extract enough gold for a single standard ring. And a staggering amount of that uncertified gold ends up right inside the laptops, smartphones, and jewelry boxes we use every single day. The crucial point is perfectly summarized by an economic analyst. Until you cut the demand side, until gold buyers ask for certified, traceable sources, the incentive to mine illegally will always outweigh the risk of getting caught. The expert consensus is incredibly clear here. This is definitely not just a local enforcement issue for Peru to solve alone. The solution absolutely requires international buyers stepping up and taking real responsibility for where their gold actually comes from. Section 5. The deadly toll of mining. Because the environmental costs, they are staggering, and they're global. Every single hectare of forest lost disrupts global carbon absorption, alters regional rainfall patterns that ultimately help grow our food, and completely destroys untapped medicinal plants. Make no mistake, the destruction happening in this localized reserve is actively accelerating climate change for all of us. And then there's the totally invisible human cost. Mercury levels in the area are hitting 10 times the safe limit. This is causing severe neurological damage, birth defects, and chronic illness. It's a highly toxic legacy that lingers in the water and in the people, long after the miners have packed up and moved on. And honestly, we can't ignore the societal decay here either. This is no longer just poor artisanal miners panning for a bit of gold. Investigative journalists are reporting that heavily armed criminal networks and syndicates are now involved. They're funding the logistics, bribing officials, and smuggling the mercury and fuel across borders. Violent turf wars have literally turned parts of this previously protected reserve into incredibly dangerous no-go zones. Which brings us to the core dilemma of this whole explainer. Peru undeniably has the will to fight illegal mining, but the challenge is just overwhelming. Do they have the necessary resources, the complex intelligence networks, and most importantly, the international support to actually win this fight? Because right now, while the government fights, the miners just keep coming back, the forest keeps burning, and the gold keeps flowing out. So I want to leave you with this stark, vital question to really reflect on. The question isn't just whether Peru can stop them today. The real question is, at this current rate, will there be any forest left to protect tomorrow? Thank you so much for exploring this deeply important topic with me on The Explainer today. Really think about where your supply chains start next time you buy a piece of tech or jewelry. I'll catch you guys next time.